Hello, good morning and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis for the date 19th December 2024. To make the discussion very comprehensive, in today's session, I'll be discussing a total of 12 articles, including one article from Hindustan Times and one article from Indian Express. The discussion will be comprehensive just to ensure that this will be a one-stop destination for all of your current affairs requirements. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button, and if you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the discussion, today at 8 p.m., there will be a very important session conducted live by Abhishek Mishra sir. This session will be covering all the important aspects a civil service aspirant must understand from the topic of World War I. Do not forget to join the session live today at 8 p.m. Now let me start the discussion. The first important article, I've taken one article from yesterday's Hindu and today's editorial article. There is a lot of discussion that has been happening regarding the electronic voting machines. Some of the political parties have raised concerns saying that there can be a manipulation of EVMs, and the current elections or in the recent elections which have been conducted, there has been a manipulation, and that is the precise reason a particular political party has won the elections. Now, regarding this, there are certain important points which have been provided in yesterday's article as well as today's article. Let's try and understand. Whenever a political party raises doubts regarding the functioning of electronic voting machines, this, many experts say, will sow certain doubts, will basically raise certain doubts in the minds of the voters. And as such, earlier the petitions have been filed in Supreme Court. Even Supreme Court of India accepted the report of Election Commission of India regarding the technology that is used in EVMs, and there is no way to hack an electronic voting machine. Now, but again and again, many of these political parties who have lost elections, who have lost majority in elections, either state level or at the Lok Sabha level, keep on raising this particular issue of EVM and demand that there should be an investigation, we should go back to the earlier ballot paper system, etc., etc. Now, regarding this, 5 very important points have been mentioned in the article. Let me tell you what are these particular 5 points. The editorial basically says the current opposition party, rather than asking or rather than raising doubts regarding EVM, should raise a certain serious questions about the election or free or fair conduct of elections and hold the Election Commission of India accountable. What are these particular 5 areas? Point number 1, in the last 5 years, more and more number of people are raising doubts regarding electronic voting machine. And when I say people, I'm not talking about political parties. I'm talking about voters. According to a survey that has been conducted by Lokniti CSDS survey, it shows that between 2019 to 2024, between 2019 to 2024, out of the total number of voters, more and more number of voters are raising doubts regarding the EVMs. Back in 2019, it was just around 14% of the voters. And in the year 2024, this has increased marginally, but nevertheless, an important point, to 17%. That is approximately 1/6 of the voters have certain doubts regarding EVMs. That also means more than 3/4 number of voters have confidence on the voters. But the point here is, when you say 1/6 of the voters have certain doubts, don't you think that might basically push them away from voting whenever the next elections are conducted? Because as a voter, I might simply think, if I'm one of the people who is doubting this, as a voter, I must simply say, what is the point of voting? Anyways, the EVMs are tampered with, EVMs are manipulated. So rather than voting, I know the outcomes of the election, so I will stay away from voting. This might actually become a problem in the coming days. So what has to be done? The argument is the Election Commission of India. It becomes the duty of Election Commission of India to basically educate this population or this section of voters and prove to them that no, EVMs are safe. You can, without any doubt, cast your vote. No manipulation can be done. In fact, the survey says that a large number of educated youth, understand the importance of this, large number of educated youth such as you and your competitors, etc., are having serious doubts regarding the EVMs. So don't you think when minorities, right, be it religious minorities or any other kind of minorities, or right, let's say educated youth, when they keep on saying that they have serious doubts regarding whether the EVMs can be tampered or not, and they feel that there can be a manipulation, it becomes the duty of Election Commission of India to bring awareness, to raise awareness amongst these voters. Otherwise, the voting pattern might be affected in the coming elections. And please remember this, free and fair elections. Free and fair elections with more participation of voters is one of the very important aspects of democracy. We need to ensure that, we need to continue with that. So this is the first very important point. Second very important point, whenever elections are announced, certain restrictions are imposed by the Election Commission of India on political parties. Right? I hope you understand. Whenever the elections are announced, essentially what happens is certain restrictions are imposed. That is, codes are put in place, and during this particular period, after announcement of election, certain restrictions will automatically become implemented across all the political parties. Now, very often it has been seen that Election Commission of India might have a very relaxed approach regarding application of this code of conduct against members of a political party, and it might take a very stringent view and take action against the application of code of conduct against certain other members of political parties or other political parties. In the last couple of elections that have been conducted, in various instances, many experts have pointed out that Election Commission of India has issued a notice regarding violation of a code of conduct, asking the members to explain, asking the politicians to explain specifically who are coming from the opposition political parties, and they do not belong to the ruling party. And whenever, let's say, certain important functionary, a important person, a minister, a cabinet minister, etc., they end up giving speeches, they end up promising something during an election rally, they basically give a threat, etc. In such cases, the Election Commission of India has shown a relaxed application or a laxed implementation of code of conduct. So don't you think, if you want to conduct free and fair elections, the code of conduct must be uniformly applicable, whether you are a member of the government, whether you are a minister from the government or a member of opposition political party, doesn't matter. It should be uniformly applicable. I am reminded of a statement regarding judiciary. It is not sufficient to show that, if it is not just sufficient to do justice, it is equally important to be seen to be doing justice. That is, the people should be aware. The public should be aware that the justice is happening. So in the same way, the Election Commission of India, it's not just sufficient to be present, announce elections. It is equally important to ensure that the public agrees with the argument that you are impartial. Right? So relaxed application of code of conduct, that is one more area where Election Commission of India should be held accountable. Third important area, now the Delhi elections are announced. In case of Delhi elections, two very important serious issues have been raised. First one is, there's a concept of ballot, that is postal ballot. Certain people are allowed to cast their vote through postal ballot. But to cast that vote, initially there's a particular process where the block level official will visit the houses and they will collect basically the form number 12, form 12D. Right? Let's say there is a person who is bedridden. They want to cast their vote. They can do that through ballot, through postal ballot. But before that, the BLO has to go to the person's home along with the videographer and certain other representative or other official and get the form 12D filled by the voter. But in recent times, there is an allegation in Delhi that whenever the BLO goes to the home of this voter, a representative from the political party is going to the house. From a political party, not any other official, from a particular political party is visiting the house. So don't you think there can be undue influence of voters who are going to vote through postal ballot? That is one more concern. So question is, why is the Election Commission of India allowing, against the rules, allowing a member of a political party to visit the home of a voter when they're supposed to fill the form? Fourth concern is removal of voters from the list of voters. Right? In case of, let's say, Delhi elections itself, various members from different political parties have raised this concern that there is a sudden removal, right? Let's say a removal of thousands of voters from a particular constituency. What is the logic behind it? How come thousands of voters' names have been removed, have been omitted from a voter list? And this becomes a problem if this constituency historically has favored one political party. And this is the concern which has been raised by a political party in the Delhi elections right now. That is removal of voters from the electoral list. And finally, the fifth one. Very recently, the elections have been conducted for Lok Sabha as well as multiple state legislative assembly elections. During some of these elections, suddenly in the evening time, there is a large number of votes which have been cast from a particular booth. Now, this raises a concern. How come in this particular booth or in some of the booths, there is a sudden surge, sudden rise in the number of votes? Even the Election Commission of India has not been able to sufficiently or basically satisfactorily answer this kind of a question. So there are certain concerns which have been raised. Is there a booth which is being captured now? Is booth capturing being done? Essentially, booth capturing means a person, or let's say a person from a political party or group of people from political party will go to this voting booth and will take over the charge, control over the EVMs. Right? That is essentially called as booth capturing, which was very much prevalent earlier when the ballot was being cast through pieces of paper, but recently these are not being practiced or these are illegal. So essentially these are some of the areas or concerns which the editorial says the opposition political parties, various other members in the parliament should raise doubts regarding this, should hold the Election Commission of India, ask them, right, hold them accountable, asking them these kind of questions, rather than simply raising one doubt regarding EVMs. Right? In fact, many of these members within the alliance itself, that is India Alliance, have stayed away from this kind of a question regarding EVMs. Right? Their argument is, you cannot always question the EVM if you lose election, and you cannot simply sit quiet when you win the election. In fact, the same argument was put forward by Supreme Court of India as well. So rather than talking only about EVMs, talk about other areas. Try to hold Election Commission of India accountable in serious issues rather than talking about EVMs. Done? So these are certain important points. I've given a question for descriptive answer writing practice, discuss the role of Election Commission of India in free and fair elections, which are a must to protect democracy. Okay, this is assignment, write it. Next article, Section 6A of Citizenship Act. Why it has failed Assam? Right now, let me give you a brief story here. Right, if you want a detailed idea regarding Section 6A of the Citizenship Act, there is a detailed video done by Sarmat sir. It is a very elaborative video. If you want, you can have a look at it. Let me give you a basic idea here. In 1960s and 70s, there is a lot of a political turmoil in Bangladesh. Then it was right, basically another part of Pakistan, but let's say Bangladesh. And in this particular duration, lot of population which was residing in the border areas started moving into India. Lot of this population entered into multiple states, including Assam by the way. In addition to Assam, this population or the migration of the population took place in Meghalaya, Tripura, West Bengal, Mizoram, etc. Now, when the population will start moving across the border like this into a particular state in India, automatically the composition of population in this state will start changing. And when the composition will change, there will be fight amongst this population for jobs. There will be fight amongst this population for food, for land, for, right, let's say, voting in the elections, etc. And in addition to all of this, automatically this kind of a migration of population will also have an impact on cultural composition of a particular place. There is no doubt regarding that, that will happen. For example, imagine a particular state is there, right? And if a lot of the people from another state in India who have different cultural practices move into that particular state, don't you think automatically the cultural composition of the first state will change? Of course, yes, that will happen. So, regarding these particular issues or raising these particular issues, there was a movement in Assam, very famously called as Assam movement, that started in the year 1979. It started in 1979. Finally, in 1985, when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, there was an agreement which was signed, and that is famously called as Assam Accord. Okay, this was signed in 1985. According to this particular agreement, now there will be certain dates which shall be decided, and basically based on the dates, threshold dates, we will define who is a citizen of India, who is not a citizen or a foreigner, and who is allowed to apply for a citizenship and who will be basically taken out of India. That is treated as a foreigners and deported from India. These particular dates are very simple. Understand this. Those who have moved into India from, right, again I'm saying Bangladesh. Earlier it was part of Pakistan. I'm using the term Bangladesh here. So those who have moved into India between January 1st, 1966 to 1971. That is basically March 25, 1971. Right, so those people who have moved into India in these two or between these two dates, they will be classified or they will be given citizenship in India. They will become normal citizens. But for a certain period of time, they were not given the right to vote, and that was for a period of 10 years. And those who have moved after March 25, 1971, and those who are watching and those who will watch afterwards, why do you think March 25th was taken as a threshold or a watermark time period here? Why this particular date was chosen? If you know the answer, please do let me know. 25th March 1971. Why? Why this particular date? Why not any other date? Right? So why this particular date? There is a historical importance to this. So those who have moved from 1966 to 1971, they will be given citizenship. And those, right, basically have moved after 1971 will be declared as illegal migrants and will be identified and deported from India. And to essentially implement this provision which is there in the Assam Agreement, the government of India introduced Section 6A under Citizenship Act. That they implemented or they introduced Section 6A under Citizenship Act. Now, against this particular provision, many of the petitions were filed in the Supreme Court, and this year, the Supreme Court has issued order or has issued the final order regarding the Section 6A, and it has upheld the constitutional validity of Section 6A. What were the arguments which were put forward in the petitions opposing 6A? The arguments against the Section 6A are simple. Point number one, the petitioners argued that in case of India, when you talk about citizenship, when you talk about application of citizenship, etc., different sections or different articles of Constitution of India are used. Especially if you are moving from Pakistan to India, generally you will have to refer to Article 6 and Article 7. But in case of these migrants from Bangladesh into India, these articles are not being applied. Is that not violation of Constitution? And in this case, the government of India has signed an agreement only with Assam. Only with Assam. They have singled out Assam and they have signed an agreement. Is it not violation of Article 14, equality? Right? So these are some of the arguments. Right? I hope you understand. These are some of the arguments which were put forward by the petitioners, basically saying that no, Section 6A is unconstitutional. Section 6A is unconstitutional. In addition to this, they also said that the Section 6A of Citizenship Act violates Article 29 of Indian Constitution. What does the Article 29 say? It simply says any section of the citizens who are residing in a territory, part of India, which have a distinct language, script, culture, etc., will have every right to conserve it. Right? You will have every right to conserve your culture, and the government shall not take any steps against this. So the argument was, it is violating Article 29 because the people from Bangladesh have moved into Assam. There is a change in the cultural composition. So Article 14 violating. Article 29 violating, hence it should be declared unconstitutional. Supreme Court of India, the constitutional bench of 5 judges gave a verdict. 4 of the judges or justices were basically upheld the constitutional validity, and 1 justice opposed and simply said it is unconstitutional. Now, what were the arguments? The majority judgment, which was authored by the former CJI, Mr. or Justice Chandrachud, the argument was simple. The majority judgment said, in case of India, just because certain population has moved into certain, let's say, state, certain region, and there is a change in the culture, just because this population is present doesn't mean you will be losing your culture. Doesn't mean there's a change in the culture automatically because other population, or let's say population from other religion, have moved into this particular state. That doesn't automatically happen. Point number 1. Point number 2, the judgment also said it is not violating, hence it is not violating Article 29. And second point, basically when the government of India, when they will have to form, let's say, laws regarding citizenship, they have flexibility under the Constitution of India. For example, the government quoted Article 11 and the government said, I have sufficient flexibility under Article 11 to formulate laws regarding Citizenship Act. So Supreme Court of India said, yes, government is not violating any of the constitutional provisions. So Supreme Court of India, looking at all of these arguments, stated that no, this Section 6A is not right. It cannot be held unconstitutional. It is constitutional. Right? And this article, this is an let's say the article from the central page. In this article, the two authors basically argue, no, Supreme Court of India was wrong in giving this kind of a judgment. The majority verdict has ignored certain important facts. Right, so what are the facts which have been highlighted in this article, which they argue that Supreme Court of India should have taken into consideration? If they had taken this into consideration, the verdict should have been something else. So their argument is, look at the Article 29 of Indian Constitution. Look at Article 29. When you look at Article 29, it will give the power to certain section of population to preserve, to protect their culture. Now, Supreme Court of India says no violation in this. There is no proof. I repeat, Supreme Court says there is no proof that the state government policies or the government policies led to non-protection of culture of the people. The argument of these columnists is, when the government makes policies and as a result of this policy, it will have an impact on the culture, don't you think the policy itself should not be implemented? Just to make you understand, I'll just give you a similar example, just to make you understand. Imagine, I will simply say that it is your right to access internet. You want to read anything on the internet, you have every right to do that. But at the same point of time, I will take a policy to ban the accessibility, ban availability of internet in the region. So don't you think this policy of the government is having an impact on, is it resulting on violation of your right? Of course, yes. So the argument is simple here. When the government allows people to migrate, get citizenship and locate and basically be present in particular region, automatically there will be exchange in culture. Automatically there will be impact on the culture. So the government may not be having a direct policy which is affecting the culture, which is not prohibiting the protection of culture, but indirectly when you allow the people to get citizenship and they reside in the region, there will be impact on the culture. So the argument of the columnist is simple, right? Under Article 29, the Supreme Court of India looking at the factual data. What is the factual data here? Over a period of time, how many people speak Assamese in the region has come down. How many people are Bengali speaking has increased. So when you look at the composition of the population, you should have taken this into consideration and said, no, this is actually leading to impact on the preservation of the culture, and you should not have upheld the constitutional validity. In addition to this, they have taken other arguments of a dissenting judge, Mr. or Justice Pardiwala, who basically said, in case of the Section 6A, implementation of this in Assam, there is no self-declaration. That is, I do not have the right to declare myself as a resident. Rather, there is a particular tribunal which will declare whether I am a citizen or not, whether I am a foreigner or a citizen. And over a period of time, the argument was, over a period of time, government documents can be destroyed, government documents can be lost. At that particular point of time, implementation of this becomes very difficult. Second, in the dissenting judgment, they also said, and this has been dissenting judgment, the justice said this, and this has been mentioned here as well. There was no clause which will basically ensure there is the end date for this provision. This has been implemented for many years now. So for how long will you keep on implementing this? Right? Don't you think there should be an expiry clause for this? There is no expiry clause. Right? So citing many of these arguments, the columnists basically say Section 6A has failed the Assam population. Done? So these are certain points regarding the article given here. Go through this. Next article, generic drugs. Making affordable generics more reliable. Right? What are the important points? Listen to me very carefully. In the last couple of days, we have been discussing a lot of concepts regarding healthcare. Add this one as well to the discussion. Now, in case of India, yesterday I've told you this, I'll reiterate this. one of the reasons why population is not able to get access to healthcare is higher out-of-the-pocket expenditure. Higher out-of-pocket expenditure. This is point number one. Now, this has basically affected a lot of population because they are not able to get access to healthcare. And the population which gets access to healthcare, because the expenditure is so high, it is pushed into poverty. Now, historically, if you look at the evolution of generic drugs, what has happened in case of India is, the government back in the year 1970, when Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, the government back in 1970 introduced the Patents Act. And under the Patent Act, the government basically did not allow, I repeat, did not allow the drugs to get patents. Drugs essentially here, I'm talking about medicines. Be very careful. Whenever you come across a drugs, and I'm talking about medicines. I'm not talking about the drugs of Urta Punjab. So argument is, the government simply said, the drugs cannot be patented, which essentially meant the drugs, or let's say basically the medicines on which the foreign investors, or let's say foreign companies have invested a lot of money, have developed this formulation. Now, domestic companies can also develop these kind of similar drugs. Similar medicines can be developed. In this case, there are two terms. Understand this. One is called as generic drugs. Okay. One is called as generic drugs, and the other one is called as branded drugs. Okay. One is generic and the second one is branded. For example, just to give you a simple example, all of you heard of paracetamol? Correct? All of you heard of paracetamol. And you must have also heard of crocin. Crocin is nothing but paracetamol, but it is a branded product. It is a branded medicine. Paracetamol is a generic product. Right? That's a very simple example. I can keep on giving you multiple examples, but this one, I'm pretty sure all of you will know paracetamol and crocin. Now come back to the discussion here. The government back in 1970 introduced the act and said, no, even the domestic manufacturers can produce generic drugs. They do not have to basically be worried about patents. And the basic idea of generic drugs is, you will manufacture, you will produce a medicine which has a similar effect. The production process could be different. The production process could be different. And it should be different, by the way. Otherwise, you will end up violating the patent right. So, argument is, you will produce a medicine which has a similar effectiveness as a branded drug. But the important point here is, the generic drugs are much more cheaper compared to branded drugs. For example, here itself, if you look at paracetamol, which is being sold through the Pradhana Mantri Jan Aushadhi Kendras for 10 units, that is essentially one strip of 10 tablets, you will end up paying around 4 to 5 rupees. Whereas crocin, if you purchase for 15 tablets, you will end up spending more than 30 rupees. Again, this is a very simple example, right? So, the generic drugs are very cheaper compared to branded drugs. So, come back to the evolution here. So, 1970 that was implemented. This actually led to a lot of investment into research and development in pharmaceutical industry. Back in 1995, one more important event took place. That is, in 1995, India signed TRIPS agreement. India signed TRIPS agreement, trade-related intellectual property rights. Under WTO, there is an agreement called as a TRIPS agreement. And once any country signs a TRIPS agreement and implements it, they will have to implement a policy or a law providing protection for intellectual property rights. Although there was certain opposition from the pharmaceutical industry, over a period of time, lot of investment was again done in India. The domestic companies today, many of these domestic companies are known worldwide, globally, because understand this, we have become one of the biggest producers of generic drugs and also exporters. Is the point clear? we are one of the largest producers as well as exporters of generic drugs in the international market. As per one of the data, more than 13%, I repeat, more than 13% of global pharmaceuticals, especially in generics, is produced and exported from India. It will bring lot of revenue for the domestic manufacturers or the producers of these generic drugs. But in recent times, there have been certain concerns raised regarding the production and supply of generic drugs in India. Very recently, I am reminded of one particular news article where it was shown that the talcum powder, the powder that most of the people will use to apply on the face, the talcum powder was actually used to manufacture particular medicines, and these were sold as healthy medicines to patients in India in a particular state, right? So I hope you understand, these were sold as antibiotics. So instead of having other, right, let's say ingredients, they used talcum powder to manufacture this and sell it, which raises serious doubts regarding the policy that we have regarding, right, let's say the generic medicines in India. Now, what are the issues which have been raised in the article? I'll come to the article now. What are the issues which have been raised? Important issues, by the way. Point number one, whenever you go to a doctor and you ask the doctor, should we take generic medicines or let's say branded the medicines as such, most of the doctors generally prefer the branded medicines. Again, there is a self-interest there, but let's not be worried about self-interest. So argument is the doctors generally prescribe more and more branded medicines. Reasons which have been cited are, one, the branded medicines generally guarantee the kind of quality that you need for treatment purposes. For example, when you manufacture medicines, when you manufacture them, you are supposed to take care of, right, let's say cleanliness. You are supposed to take care of quality of raw materials. You are supposed to take care of what is the size of this, what is the content of this medicine, etc., etc. And because the private sector companies are more worried about, let's say, being dragged to the court, being penalized, etc., losing of the license, and more importantly, losing the customers, they will generally take care of it and guarantee all of this. And that is the precise reason many experts say the pricing of the product is higher compared to generic. Second one is, although the branded and generic medicines are supposed to have same impact, same kind of outcome, it has been seen that in many cases, the generic medicines do not have the right quality, do not have the right quantity, do not basically have the same kind of interaction when you ingest, when you consume or eat or basically take these medicines. For example, these medicines, there can be two types. One, once you ingest these medicines, suddenly the medicine will be broken down and let's say the chemicals will be entering into your bloodstream. That is one way. And second way is, once you consume the medicine, slowly and steadily the chemicals will be entering into your bloodstream. So what if a generic medicine is prepared, it is consumed, it is taken by a patient, but the medicine is supposed to leach very slowly, but because the quality is inferior, it will leach very fast, so the effectiveness will be much lesser. So the effectiveness of, let's say the generic medicines, I'm writing point by point, I'll write it now. The effectiveness of generic medicines is being questioned by a lot of these experts. Effectiveness, okay, the first one is the quality. Right? Now, third, why all of this is happening in India? What is the issue? The issue, according to the columnist, is the regulatory authorities. The regulation is not correct in case of India. Understand this, at the central level, we have a regulatory authority. The name of that is Central Drugs Standards control organization. Control organization. No doubt this is an authority which has been set up by the central government, but it doesn't have all the powers. Why? According to the law right now, the CDSCO is supposed to simply make policy. It is supposed to make overarching policy, but the implementation of the policy is left to the state drug regulatory authorities. Is it okay? The implementation of the policy, that is essentially how many tests are conducted, what is the quality of the production, all of this, the implementation part is with the state drug regulatory authorities. And the columnist basically says this is where there is a lacuna. This is where there is a lacuna. That is, the drawback is this kind of a decentralized system where the state regulatory authorities are not doing their duty correctly. There might be corruption in the system. There is no appropriate or let's say uniform implementation of the regulatory guidelines. And that is the precise reason they say, or the experts say, there is a problem regarding the production and supply of generic medicines in India. Right? So these are some of the very important points which have been discussed in the article. Please be very, very careful. Right? So let me go forward now. Next article, Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India has directed the central government to formulate a framework or a national policy for protection of sacred groves. Sacred groves. Now, what is a sacred grove? This article I've taken from Hindu and this one is from Hindustan Times, because I felt the second article has more important information, relevant information compared to the first article. That's the only reason. What do you mean by sacred grove? Sacred grove is nothing but a forest area, okay, type of a forest area. But this particular forest area has a certain protection, has a certain association. That is, the local community associate this region with a certain god. They believe that there might be certain spirits in this particular forest. And that is the precise reason they want to protect these pieces of lands. These are called as sacred groves. I just want to give you a very simple example. I presume, I might be wrong, I know. I presume most of you would have seen, or all of you would have seen, Avatar movie. The first one. If you have seen the first Avatar movie, have you seen a particular plant in that movie which is revered, which is respected by all the population in that particular planet? Right? So apply the similar logic here. So there was a petition which was filed in the Supreme Court of India regarding certain types of sacred groves called as orans in Rajasthan. And issuing an order regarding protection of orans, Supreme Court of India now has asked all the the central government, Ministry of Environment and Forest, to take lead in this and have a policy which should be applicable for all the states. Now, in case of sacred groves, please make a note of this, which can be asked in the preliminary examination. The sacred groves are known with different names in different regions of India. In Himachal Pradesh, these are called as a Devban, Devarakadu in Karnataka, Kavu in Kerala, Sarna in Madhya Pradesh, Devarai in Maharashtra, Umangalai in Manipur, Gramathan in West Bengal, Pavitravan in Andhra Pradesh. These are the kind of terms which can be used in the preliminary examination. Be very, very careful. So, Supreme Court of India has issued following directives. I'll go one after the other. Please listen to them. Point number one, the central government argued that under Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, the states have been given the power to announce and protect these kind of sacred groves. Supreme Court of India said no. What the government has to do is, that is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, they will have to essentially conduct a survey for covering all the sacred groves across India. Cover all the sacred groves. Different types of sacred groves are present across India. And the argument of Supreme Court of India is, these are very important. We need to protect them. We need to sustain them. And in the process of identification, the Supreme Court has said, identify their boundaries. Identify the boundaries of these sacred groves. At the same point of time, do not have rigidity. That is, do not simply say, this is the strict boundary. Beyond this, I will not declare this as a sacred grove. I will not protect it. Only behind this I will protect. No. Why? This is a forest. Forest can spread like this. So keep flexibility when you identify and demarcate the boundaries. In fact, the same directive has been issued to the state of Rajasthan. And the state of, that is the government of Rajasthan, has been asked to do this. Right. So second, these particular sacred groves, right, understand this, will have to be notified, right, will have to be protected for conservation purposes. These have to be notified and protected for conservation purposes. And for that purpose, the Supreme Court has said, under section 36C of Forest Rights Act, please make a note of this, right, under section 36C of Wildlife Protection Act, notify them as community reserves. Notify these as community reserves. Essentially, when you say community reserves, it's a type of a protected area, unlike, let's say, right, other forms of protection which are present in India. But in case of community reserves, there is a regulation over what kind of activity that can be conducted. Right, so that is also one of the very important, right, let's say, order which has been issued by Supreme Court of India, wherein it has issued directives for the state of Rajasthan and also the Ministry of Environment and Forest to formulate policy to protect the sacred groves across India. Right, so there is a very high potential of a question being asked from this particular, let's say, area that is related to sacred groves. Please be very, very careful. Okay, now, next article, CCTNS. Right, what is the CCTNS? Crime and Criminal Tracking Network System. Okay, crime and criminal tracking network and system. The government of India, right, understand this, the government of India back in the year 2009 under National E-Governance Program, NEGP, National E-Governance Program, promoted and implemented a concept called as the CCTNS, right, and this was essentially spearheaded by Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, and the nodal authority for the implementation of CCTNS is National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau. Now, what is the importance of the CCTNS? Earlier, if you see, whenever you wanted to file an FIR, first information report, it was supposed to be done physically, that is in a piece of paper. Every station used to keep on writing FIRs in certain types of paper that they were supposed to submit to the court. Now, if this FIR is filed in one state or in one police station, it is not accessible to other police stations in the same state or in different states. What if a police station from another part of India wants to get access to FIR? They have caught hold of a particular person. They want to check the criminal history of this person now. It is not possible. So, in order to make the whole system, right, use technology to have a uniform system throughout India, to make the whole process of policing much more efficient and to ensure it is not a burden, it is not basically a difficult process for an individual to get information from the police station, from the court to get access to information from the police station, for the higher officials to get access to weekly reports, etc. The government of India in 2009 announced the concept of CCTNS. Now, government of India says all the other police stations which were supposed to be brought under CCTNS have been brought under this. Totally more than 17,000, right? Totally more than 17,000 police stations across India. That is from 28 states as well as union territories have been covered under the CCTNS now. Done. So this is one more important reform, one more very important policy that the government of India has implemented to basically promote usage of technology, improve policing activity. Right, so this is an important article. Please be careful. Now, associated with this, I've given an MCQ. The nodal agency for CCTNS is certain. It is conceptualized and implemented under Ministry of Law under NEGP. It is being implemented across all the 28 states and union territories. A simple question, assuming you have heard what I've discussed in the last 5 to 7 minutes. How many of the statements are true? Do let me know. Otherwise, don't worry. I'll give you the answer at the end of the discussion. India-China talks. The 23rd meeting, that is essentially the meeting between the National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, and the Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, was held very recently. Now, what is the importance of this article? India and China have a very, very long relationship. The relationship in terms of trade is present. They have relationship in terms of culture. They have relationship in terms of sharing of the boundary, etc. And historically speaking, these relationships have experienced very highs as well as very lows as well. For example, back in the year 2020, because of the clashes at Galwan, these relations experienced one of the lowest types of, let's say, exchanges in the history of India and China. That is, a lot of these activities that were earlier conducted, that were earlier a norm between India and China, that were basically stopped. For example, even today we do not have direct flights connecting India and China. Right, many of these tourists who will visit Manas Ganga, right, there was a ban on that, there was a stoppage on that. The trade was affected. Government of India has implemented multiple policies to control essentially the type of investment that will come from neighboring countries who share border, including China. So one of the outcomes of this kind of, let's say, the friction between India and China was stoppage of or halt in the talks between the special representatives, SR, special representatives between India and China, who used to meet. This basically the convention of meeting started back in the year 2003. It started in 2003, and the argument was the special representatives from India and China will meet annually like this, hold a dialogue and try to find out if there is any political solution to the cross-border issue. That is, border sharing issue. Is there any solution to that? So periodically there have been meetings which have been conducted between the representative, there is a special representative from India and that of China. But after what happened in Galwan in 2020, this particular meeting stopped. The last meeting was conducted back in the year 2019 in New Delhi. It was conducted in 2019 in New Delhi. And after that, Galwan clashes took place in 2020. We lost a lot of soldiers, lot of our heroes we lost in these particular clashes. And one of the outcomes was this meeting was cancelled after that. Now, after 4 years of the clash, again, for the first time after 4 years, the SRs from India and China have met, and this becomes the 23rd meeting between both of them. But before this 23rd meeting took place, there were two important events. Before this meeting took place, there were two important events. What were the events? One, during the 16th BRICS meeting, during the 16th BRICS convention, which took place very recently in Russia, that is at Kazan, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, and the representative, that is the head of China, Xi Jinping, both of them held talks. And one of the points that they agreed to was we should not allow the peace between both of the countries to be disturbed. We should restart the talks. And after this, in the month of October, there was a very important announcement. That is, between India and China, there was an announcement regarding border patrol agreement. Border patrol agreement. As per this agreement, there was a de-escalation. There was a de-escalation which was conducted by both of the parties. And after these two events took place, now the 23rd meeting between the SRs has taken place. Right? Both of the representatives have spoken, and important outcomes have been that, one, both the parties agree that there should be peace between both the countries. There should be more relations, developing relations between both of the countries in the form of, let's say, trade, cultural exchanges, etc., etc. Right? So these are certain important points regarding this article. Important one under the international relation. Be careful. Next one. For the first time, the Ganges dolphins have been fixed or have been tagged, right? And their movement will be monitored now. This is important. Whenever you talk about dolphins in India, right, especially the focus is on the dolphins in the Ganges. According to various sets of reports, there were more than 10,000, 20,000 dolphins which were present in the river Ganga. But over a period of time, because of fishing activity, during which they have been killed, because of construction of dams and other types of infrastructure, because of, right, let's say various other activities, the number of the dolphins in the Ganges have actually come down. From one point of time where we had more than 10,000 dolphins like this, these numbers have dwindled, have come down below 2,000 now. So to address this particular policy, the government of India announced an initiative called as the Dolphin Initiative. That is protecting dolphin. On the lines of Project Tiger, we announced Project Dolphin. Right, we announced Project Dolphin. And this particular Project Dolphin, which was announced by the Prime Minister back in the year 2020, the argument under the Project Dolphin was, we will try to protect, conserve and promote the population of the dolphins across multiple, let's say multiple rivers and seas which flow across India. Right, so this particular Project Dolphin is being implemented. Under Project Dolphin now, there is a new, right, initiative, or there is a update. What is update? For the first time ever, this is important. For the first time ever, a dolphin has been tagged. Tagged essentially means, right, indicator has been put, right, that has been inserted into the body of the dolphin. Now we will be able to monitor the movement of the dolphin using satellites. Right, so tagging has been conducted for the first time ever for a dolphin in India. Now, what is the use of this? The government simply says, by tagging the dolphin, we will be able to monitor what kind of a route, what kind of a region they will travel, right? What kind of activity they are involved in. And we will be able to collect a lot of information. We will be able to collect lot of data now. And we will use this information for policy making, right? For effective implementation of various schemes of government of India. Done? So these are certain important points regarding this article. This is done for the first time ever in India. Be careful. MCQ 53. Consider the following statements regarding Project Dolphin. The nodal ministry is the Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Husbandry. Second one, this was launched in 2020. It aims to protect the dolphins found in rivers, seas across India. How many of the statements are true? Do let me know. If not, I'll discuss the key answer in some time. Don't worry. Next one. Mr. Vijay Mallya has taken a swipe, has tweeted or written something on the platform X. And because of that, and a day prior to that, the finance minister has given a statement on the floor of the parliament. Because of these two events, or let's say the articles, the concept of economic offender becomes important now. What is this idea of an economic offender? The government of India back in the year 2018 introduced a bill, passed this, and it made an act. The name of the act is Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Fugitive Economic Offender Act. Under Fugitive Economic Offender Act, there are people who have been listed. For example, they have been notified as economic fugitives. Mr. Vijay Mallya is one of them. Mr. Nirav Modi is also one of them. Now, what is the idea of an economic fugitive economic offender here? It simply means a person who has been declared as an economic offender. There is an arrest warrant which has been issued against this person by the court. Now, this person is out of India, is not willing to come back to India to face prosecution, or else upon hearing the news or being worried about being issued an arrest warrant, the person will escape from India and doesn't want to come back to India to face prosecution. In addition to that, if the value of economic offense is more than 100 CR, you can be declared as a fugitive economic offender. Please be careful. This is there in the newspaper because of the statement given by Finance Minister. So what is the story here? The Finance Minister on the floor of the Parliament stated that we have been able to recover around 14,000 crore rupees from the assets which have been confiscated, right, from this economic offender, right, that is Vijay Mallya. Against this, right, let's say the person that is Vijay Mallya has written on the X platform saying that the value of the loans or the debt that I owed to multiple banks was around 6,000 crore rupees. It was around, right, 6,000 crore rupees. But you have confiscated assets and you have recovered more than 14,000 crores, which is more than twice the amount that I owed. So don't you think that is violation? Right? You should refund me or you should give me back the remaining amount, etc. Right? To what extent this is the right step? Right? These are the kind of questions which have been raised by Mr. Vijay Mallya. You don't worry about the questions. You be worried about the concept of fugitive economic offender here. Okay? Done? Right? Next article. This one I have taken from Indian Express. 100-day campaign has been launched by Government of India. Right? Again and again, there is a lot of discussion regarding tuberculosis. We also, including me by the way, we have discussed regarding TB in the daily CNS. That is a news analysis. Now, in addition to all the reforms which have been implemented by the government now has announced a 100-day campaign. Now, the target that the Government of India set up to eradicate TB is 2025. To implement the policies much better, there is a targeted approach now under the 100 days campaign, where certain number of districts which have very high incidences of patients having tuberculosis have been identified, and intensive testing is being conducted in these regions or in these districts. Right? And as a result of this, more than 16,000 cases have been identified by the government. And this is important because once you identify, you'll be able to provide better treatment. One of the reasons why we generally find it difficult to contain TB is people many of the times are not aware that they have TB. Even if they are aware, they do not have testing facilities nearby. And they'll keep on suffering and also, right, basically putting the households, the society, the others also through lot of difficulty. So Government of India under this 100 days initiative is conducting targeted testing across many of the districts which have very high incidences. Point number one. Point number two, the article also says that the Government of India has increased the allocation of funding, that is essentially the assistance, the nutritional support that they provide to the TB patients. It has been doubled now. From 500 rupees, it has been doubled to 1,000 rupees. Remember this particular point as well. And the article also says, if you look at the incidences of TB, it has actually come down now. In the sense, the incidences of TB in India has reduced by 17% now, by 17%, right? And this rate of decline is more than twice the rate of decline that has been observed across the world. And not just this, it has also reduced, right, basically the number of patients which have TB in India from around 85%. Now the number of patients have been reduced to 53%. Done. That is, these are some of the very important points regarding the tuberculosis. Very often this is there in the newspaper. This one I've taken from Indian Express. Couple of more smaller articles now. Second survey ship INS Nirdeshak has been inducted into Navy. The first survey ship, right? Remember this, the first survey ship that was inducted into Navy, right, which happened in this year itself, in the beginning of this year, is INS Sandhayak. INS Sandhayak, right? So INS Sandhayak is the first survey ship. INS Nirdeshak is the second survey ship. Now, what is the importance of survey ships? These ships basically are equipped, have a lot of equipments or technology to conduct surveys, to conduct studies even at deep sea level. And when you have this kind of a capability to conduct survey, you will be able to collect a lot of data and use the data for conducting INS or let's say the Navy drills, Navy operations, etc. In addition to this, the government also says, when you develop this kind of a capability, other countries will also be interested in having this kind of a capability. They might enter into agreements to source this kind of capability, right? So these are certain important points regarding the second ship of INS Nirdeshak. Be careful. Now, next, NHRC chief. Modi-led panel meets to select the next NHRC chief. What are the important points? National Human Rights Commission. NHRC basically stands for National Human Rights Commission. Back in the year 1993, Government of India passed Protection of Human Rights Act. Protection of Human Rights Act. And under the Protection of Human Rights Act, the government set up the National Human Rights Commission. Right? That is in the year 1993. NHRC is, according to the law, supposed to have one chairperson and 5 members. Remember this composition. Is supposed to have one chairperson and 5 members. In addition to this, there are 7, right, let's say other members as well. 7 other members. Okay, ex officio members. Very recently, there has been a criticism regarding the approach of Government of India regarding NHRC. The criticism, one of them, is surrounding the delay in the Government of India appointing members as well as the chairperson to NHRC. Like I said, you are supposed to have a composition of 1 plus 5. Right now, there is just only 1 member. Is it okay? Just there is only 1 member. Out of 5 members, there is just only 1 member. And since June, after the retirement of Justice Arun Mishra, there has been no appointment of the chairperson to NHRC, as well as the vacancies in the members, that is the 4 vacancies out of 5, they are still yet to be unfilled. And regarding this, now a panel which is headed by the Prime Minister has met. The composition is simple. Please make a note of the composition. The panel is supposed to have the chairperson, that is basically the Prime Minister. Apart from the Prime Minister, the minister, that is for Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA. The Home Minister is a member. In addition to this, the leaders of opposition, both in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. The leader of opposition from Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha, plus the Speaker of Lok Sabha, and right, finally the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. Right, these are the members in the panel who will basically select candidates. Out of the list of the candidates, select the candidate and basically send the suggestion or send the recommendation to the President of India, who shall appoint this person as the NHRC. So these are certain important points regarding the NHRC. Please make a note of this. And finally, the last article, Sahitya Akademi Award. Sahitya Akademi Award. Now, what are the important points? Sahitya Akademi was one of the very important institutions to promote literature in India, which was set up by the government back in 1954. Out of multiple awards that they give out every year, there is an award where the people who are writing, who are basically the authors, translators, etc., in different languages in India are identified, selected, and they are awarded with Sahitya Akademi Award. For this year, 21 recipients have been selected. 21 recipients have been selected across multiple languages in India. And when you are conferred with the Sahitya Akademi Award, there is a citation along with a cash prize of 1 lakh rupees. So these are certain important points regarding Sahitya Akademi Award. Awards is an important area in the prelims. Make a note of this. Done. So these are the 12 articles that I wanted to discuss. Let me give you the key answers for the MCQs. Consider the following statements regarding CCTNS. The nodal agency is a certain. No, it is National Crime Records Bureau. It is conceptualized and implemented under Ministry of Law. No, it is under Ministry of Home Affairs. It is implemented across all the 28 states and union territories. Yes. So right option is option A, only one. So MCQ 53. Consider the following statements regarding Project Dolphin. The nodal ministry is the Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Husbandry. Looking at fisheries, you might be tempted. No, it is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It was launched in 2020. It aims to protect the dolphins found in the rivers and seas across India. 2 and 3 are true. Right option will be option B. Now let me take up certain questions. I'm done with the discussion. Let me take up certain questions which were put forward by the students in the comment section of yesterday's video. Kindly discuss the value of a concept of ad valorem tax. Ad valorem tax essentially means a tax which is imposed on the value of the product. Value of the product. Whatever be the value of the product, when the government will impose a tax on the value, that is called as a ad valorem tax. For example, if the seller is selling, let's say, a packet of biscuit and the price of the packet is actually 4 rupees, if the government will impose a tax on the value of that, that is 4 rupee, that is essentially called as ad valorem tax. How rupee depreciation will increase export competitiveness of the country. Let me take a very simple example. Imagine $1 is equal to 50 rupees today. And I'm manufacturing a product, including profit, I want to export it at 50 rupees. I want to export it at 50. Right now, I will export it at $1. I'll price it at $1. What if $1 becomes is equal to 100 rupees? Just a hypothetical situation. $1 becomes is equal to 100 rupees. In such a case, now I will not price the product at $1. Why? I need to earn 50 rupees. So rather than pricing the export at $1, I will reduce the price to $0.5. That is half a dollar. So when you reduce the export pricing like this, will your product not become competitive in the international market? Right? So that is the reason rupee depreciation or devaluation of a domestic currency will add to trade competitiveness or export competitiveness. Can you explain WPI and CPI? My dear, WPI, Wholesale Price Index, CPI is Consumer Price Index. I'll keep on telling you the example, the differences. These are respectively for WPI and CPI. This measures in the wholesale market what is the change in the price level. This measures in the retail market what is the change in the price level. Here, the composition, that is the basket for which the price changes are measured, is 697. Here, for overall, that is the headline inflation, 299. In WPI, only goods are there in the basket. In CPI, goods plus services are there in the basket. In WPI, manufactured products have the highest weightage. In CPI, food and beverages have the highest weightage of around 46%. Right, so these are some of the very important differences between both the WPI and CPI. In a nutshell, in one case, that is a WPI, you are looking at the wholesale market. In the other one, you are looking at retail market. What is meant by seigniorage? Seigniorage, elaborate. My dear, seigniorage essentially means the difference in the value of, let's say, a currency in terms of a difference in the value and, right, the production cost. And that is essentially taken as earnings. For example, let me take this. All of you can see this. This is a 100 rupee currency note. So when the government will issue this, it is equivalent to value of 100 rupee. It means government will take something from you and give 100 rupee. But to produce this, what if the government has spent only 10 rupee? I'm saying government, but RBI is owned by government. That's the reason. Okay. If the government has spent only 10 rupees to produce this, the difference between this is called as seigniorage. Okay. My doubt is whether service is included in the trade deficit of the country. Some sources say trade deficit reflect the trade in visible goods, hence the services are not included, whereas some sources say it includes both. Listen to me very carefully. Whenever you come across a trade data, the trade includes goods plus services. And that is the reason if they talk about simply trade deficit, it is including goods plus services. But if they use the term merchandise, then it includes only goods. If they talk about invisible, that is, right, talking about trade only, invisible trade only, they are talking about services. So simply trade, goods plus services. Merchandise, only goods. Invisible, only services. Again, I am talking about only trade here. Final question, difference between cess and surcharge. Cess and surcharges are type of levies which are imposed by the government. The importance is that cess is imposed and collected to achieve a specific objective. You want to achieve a specific objective. For that, you will impose and collect a cess, which also means you cannot use the funds for something else. For example, health and education cess. Can the government use health and education cess money that they have collected for development of port? Can they use it for repayment of the, right, let's say loans that they have taken for construction of a road? Absolutely no. They will have to use it for only the expenditure related to healthcare and education. Right, that is cess. Whereas surcharge is an additional tax or additional levy that is imposed by the government whenever certain threshold is crossed. For example, if you have a higher income above, let's say 1 CR, the government will impose surcharges on you. So in addition to tax amount that you will pay, income taxes that you will pay, you will have to pay more taxes. That is called as a surcharge. Okay. So these are the various questions that have been asked by the students in the comment section of yesterday's video. So that's it from my side. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. Do not forget, today evening, live at 8 p.m, Abhishek sir will be taking a class where he'll be discussing all the important things that you need to learn as a civil service aspirant regarding World War I. And if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.